and with the increased intercourse between the Chinese people and the foreign people.
Please, I don't dislike, that's please, sorry.
But you were explaining to me how you can now talk to foreigners. I just wanted to know what the difference is.
After smashing Gang of Four, with my own experience, I felt there's a world of difference between the time of Gang of Four and the present time.
The party draw some lessons from both among the party and among the whole China has prevailed.
So everyone tried to contribute their bit to promote the realization for modernization.
We are working together for the same goal. That means for modernizations.
But you said that, but during the time of the Gang of Four, everyone said everything in China is wonderful.
Just because at that time, you see, people don't tell the truth. You see, on one hand, they don't dare to tell the truth. Besides, they couldn't see the.
1月18日至2月21日，邓小平视察武昌、深圳、珠海、上海等地，并发表重要谈话，提出基本路线要管100年，动摇不得。判断各方面工作的是非标准，应该主要看是否有利于发展社会主义社会的生产力，是否有利于增强社会主义国家的综合国力，是否有利于提高人民的生活水平。社会主义的本质是解放生产力，发展生产力，消灭剥削，消灭两极分化，最终达到共同富裕。计划多一点还是市场多一点，不是社会主义与资本主义的本质区别。改革开放胆子要大一些，抓住时机发展自己，关键是发展经济，发展才是硬道理。中国要警惕右，但主要是防止左，要坚持两手抓，两手都要硬，两个文明建设都搞上去，这才是有中国特色的社会主义。要注意培养人，要按照4化标准选择德才兼备的人进班子，真正关系到大局的是这个事。
时候是要不搞社会主义，不搞开放，改革开放发展真不得改善生活，这个任何一条路都是死的。都要在技术发展嘛，要是人生活质量，他才会相信你。
During the era of Jiang Zemin and Li Peng, from 1989 to 1998, there was a resurgence of conservative forces, leading to a near interruption of reforms. To preserve the achievements of reform, Deng Xiaoping returned to the forefront in 1992 and delivered the famous Southern Tour speech in Shenzhen. On one hand, this provided significant support to Jiang Zemin, whose power was not yet stable. On the other hand, it also made a clear concession to the conservatives. Deng Xiaoping did not mention political system reform again. During Li Peng's tenure, which spanned a decade, a large amount of foreign capital flowed into China, enabling rapid accumulation of wealth by local governments. However, in a social environment lacking legal supervision and civic education, and with the active involvement of the Li Peng family in seeking power and economic rent, this also became a breeding ground for corruption and the destruction of the natural ecology, leading to a continuous emergence of disastrous events. The national laws were also tightened, greatly restricting economic and speech freedoms. In 1996, the then Premier Li Peng signed State Council Order No. 195, issuing the interim regulations on the management of international networking of computer information networks. Article 6 of the regulations stipulated that computer information networks might then directly access international networks using the international channels provided by the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications National Public Telecommunications Network. No unit or individual may establish or use other channels for international networking. This provision was later widely used to punish Internet censorship's convention behavior. In the 1990s, while many reform events were taking place in Southeast Asian countries, they also entered a stage of rapid economic development. However, China, with its advantage as the motherland of overseas Chinese, its huge market size and cheap labor took the lead. By implementing radical economic measures to attract international hot money and compete with other countries, Thailand, which developed rapidly as a result, eventually suffered from a severe economic bubble burst and capital outflow. This not only triggered the Southeast Asian economic crisis, but also almost simultaneously occurred with the bursting of economic bubbles in South Korea and Japan, eventually evolving into the Asian financial storm that swept across the Eastern Hemisphere in 1997. During this time, due to the conservative political ideology in China, the market was not fully opened, providing significant protection against the direct transmission of the international financial crisis to the mainland Chinese market. However, the Chinese diaspora from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, and Malaysia, who had invested extensively in mainland China, were forced to withdraw their investments due to economic reasons. This led to a sudden increase in tax pressure on local Chinese governments, and many state-owned enterprises, which had relied on government procurement for survival, went bankrupt. From 1998 to 2000, almost 7 to 9 million workers were laid off each year. By 2003, a total of 28.18 million workers from state-owned enterprises had been laid off. From 1995 to 2002, state-owned and collective enterprises streamlined more than 60 million employees, affecting at least 300 million people. This movement began in 1983 and reached its first climax in early 1992, known as the Break the Three Irons movement, which led to more than 1 million workers being laid off nationwide in just 3 months. When the layoff wave first occurred, it was very small in scale, mainly involving factories that were unable to compete with foreign companies and were gradually closing without the need for government procurement. However, after the reform of separating the party from the government began, the impact on factories began to intensify. Fierce competition emerged among factories to meet economic targets, and a group of poorly competitive factories, mostly through mergers, became part of super state-owned enterprises. These factories relied more on government procurement, which generally profited from foreign investment. After the rapid expansion of foreign investment, it immediately encountered the Asian financial storm, shrinking at an astonishing speed. Within 5 years, local finances were greatly strained. Many people had not yet adapted to the new trend when they were pushed into a more challenging situation. This directly led to a situation in 1998, where many local governments no longer had the funds to support a series of factories, making the wave of factory closure inevitable. It was also in this year that Zhu Rongji took over and formed a cabinet.
I am from the French daily Le Monde, Je sais pas. Prime Minister, I would like to ask you a question about the state-owned enterprise reform. China has started to elaborate this reform at a time when the South Korean model of big conglomerate was still quite successful. Since things have changed, as you know, so I would like to know if the collapse of this model will have any effect on the way you are thinking about this reform. And this question raises another one, that is the pace of this reform. Given the new context, the new regional context of financial crisis, will China slow down the pace of this reform, or on the contrary, will you be more cautious? Thank you.
第一，我对于韩国的企业的经验不想做任何评论，但是我们对于在这一次亚洲的金融危机中间，各个国家所取得的经验教训，我们都应该，而且确实也在这里很好的借鉴。第二，这一次东南亚的金融危机不会影响中国国有企业改革的速度。我们认为在3年内，也就是本世纪末，实现中国国有企业的亏损企业大多数在本世纪末摆脱困境，完全能够实现。对不起，我觉得外国舆论对中国国有企业的困难看得太大了。我们讲中国国有企业的亏损面现在有40%几，它是按企业的个数来统计的。中国目前的工业企业有79000个，你看这种有的是很小的，只有几十个人或者几个人。按这个数目来统计，当然亏损面很大，但是请大家注意，其中500个特大型的国有企业，它所产生向国家交纳的税收和它自己的利润，就占了全中国的利润和税收的85%，而这500个特大型企业亏损面只有10%，也就是50%。所以我们认为，从总体上来讲，国有企业、亏损企业摆脱困境3年够了。
Those reforms, supported by Jiang Zemin, ushered in a period in China's history where economic, political, cultural, artistic, and speech freedoms were most prominent. During this time, China faced two main issues: financial pressure on local governments and the employment pressure on the unemployed population. The risk of social unrest came from the potential for more factory closures and the employment pressure on the unemployed population and recent graduates. Zhu Rongji took decisive action. He proposed a radical economic policy to help state-owned enterprises emerge from difficulties in 3 years, forcibly implementing it, which led to the closure of many companies with a large amount of bad assets. Following the 1956 three major transmissions, which accounted for over 90% of the national wealth, almost all state-owned enterprises were reformed almost overnight. In a very short period, under Zhu's cabinet, individuals and families who had considered factories their lifelong destination were forced to enter society. Then, Zhu Rongji approved measures to expand university enrollment and construction in 1998 to absorb migrant workers and ease the financial pressure on local governments. Today, many university dormitories, teaching buildings, and laboratories were built in the late 1990s. From then on, land finance became the main source of revenue for local governments, continued to this day. This measure has become a model for measures taken during the 2008 global financial crisis and the 2020 global economic crisis, repeatedly imitated by 2 generations of cabinets. However, these measures were not enough to absorb all the unemployed population. Although they delayed the graduation time for young people, they did not fully resolve the employment pressure faced by this increasingly educated group. Local finances also did not receive full relief from university expansion. To address these issues, Zhu Rongji further relaxed the restrictions on license for real estate and civil infrastructure construction as well as restrictions on local government land transactions. He began to implement a socialist market economy, lowering the threshold for market access and strongly integrating voices within the party to make efforts to join the World Trade Organization and greatly increase domestic employment. The opening up of real estate licenses ultimately stabilized the local government finances and provided relief for a considerable portion of the age-appropriate employed population with limited education. Major real estate and civil engineering companies in China emerged during this period. The establishment of a socialist market economy provided space for unemployed people and graduates with market competitiveness, leading to the emergence of major private enterprises in various fields in China during this period. Joining the World Trade Organization laid the foundation for the future dominance of Made in China and attracted many highly educated or internationally minded talents to enter the foreign trade industry. By 2019, the foreign trade industry accounted for 52.7% of the national GDP, providing direct employment for over 180 million people.
我们总是以有香港而自豪。我就不相信香港搞不好。如果香港搞不好，不但你们有责任，我们也有责任。香港回归祖国在我们的手里搞坏了，那我们岂不成了民族罪人？不会。
By the time Zhu Rongji stepped down in 2003, China had successfully bid for the hosting rights of the 2008 Beijing International Summer Olympics and the 2010 Shanghai World Expo. However, international financial assessments of the Chinese economy generally indicated that around 2005, the Chinese real estate bubble should have burst, allowing the market to naturally clear bad assets. However, this event did not occur. The Wen Jiabao cabinet took measures like those of the current Li Qiang cabinet, forcibly terminating the natural regulation of the market, leading to a cycle of economic crises in China every 3 years and every 5 years thereafter. The visible hand of the government became increasingly limited in its regulatory role. Zhu Rongji's land finance reform, by selling real estate license to individuals, families, and intermediaries with political or military backgrounds, effectively increased the likelihood of the proposal being passed within the party. However, it also gave the green light to power rent-seeking by the conservatives. Real estate companies, with the tacit approval of the central bank and Zhu Rongji's control, borrowed heavily from the 4 major banks to purchase urban land at high prices, injecting funds into local finances to compensate for the tax revenue shortfall caused by the withdrawal of foreign investments. The debates of various community construction projects ranged from hundreds of billions to trillions. Subsequently, real estate developers used a small amount of bank borrowing to pay for the wages of cheap labor and processing fees for raw materials in the construction industry, greatly alleviating the employment pressure on migrant workers in cities and laid-off urban population, and creating a considerable number of career positions and civil service positions. Then, with the tacit approval of local governments, real estate companies continued to drive up property prices, actively attracting family capital that had just accumulated into the real estate industry, ultimately returning most of this family capital to the debates of the 4 major banks of China. The 4 major banks then injected their capital into light industries needed by households, thereby promoting the vigorous development of Chinese manufacturing and the healthy flow of market funds Local governments also injected funds into regional infrastructure construction. Zhongji's radical reform measures effectively reversed the potential crisis of severe social unrest in China within 5 years. When the Communist Party's role is threatened, liberals and conservatives can always reach a consensus. However, many conservatives still believe that Zhongji's reforms were too aggressive. On one hand, the government did not provide adequate welfare protection for the victims of the layoff wave, directly leading to a rapid increase in urban poverty and deteriorating social security, eroding the legitimacy of the Communist Party. On the other hand, Zhongji's economic system reform plan overlooked the potential crisis of excessive urbanization and middle-class trap that has occurred in Latin America, South Africa, and North Africa, and Southeast Asia. However, if he did not do so, things might have been worse. In any case, whether this was a major reform that reversed the crisis of the Communist Party regime or a temporary measure to prolong its life, the history of 20 years seems to have already provided an answer.
大会通过朱镕基为国务院总理。
我应该要给你说回来。
现在上海最重要的还是要扎扎实实的去落实，要说到要做到，而不是提出很多的纲领、很多的要求。
你们还年轻啊，同学们啊，来日方长，你们应该健康的活着，看到我们中国世界丝袜的那一天。
我知道香港一部分老百姓是很喜欢我的，但是有一部分人对我是恨之入骨啊。我说我们这个代表团里面，我相信他里面大多数人都很喜欢我，但是我也相信有一小部分人他对我的批评很不满意，等我下台的时候可能要对我进行报复。
在新的一年开始的时候，我带来了是以中国人民的向美国人民的亲切问候和良好祝愿。
这个邓小平同志啊，他是国内外公认的我们党的领袖，就是说我们在最重要的问题上还需要他党督。
再不迅速稳定局势，就会导致全国范围的大动乱。
中国的互联网是开放的，我们拥有世界上最多的网民，同时我们一向也依法依规管理互联网。
现在政府机关庞大的不得了，里面人浮于事，工作人员也要实行公开招聘考试，要选拔一批有志于振兴上海、全心全意为人民服务、又懂技术、又懂业务、又懂管理的人。只要香港特区行政政府向中国中央政府提出要求，中央政府将不惜一切代价维护香港的繁荣稳定。
我们军民鱼水情，我们过去经常讲的军民团结如一人，试看天下谁能敌。这次抗战的斗争再一次证实了这个真理。
住房的建设将要成为中国经济的新的增长点，让人民群众自己买房子。我们在下半年即将出台一个全国的医疗的改革的制度，来保证人民群众的基本的福利。
始终做到3个代表，是我们党的立党之本、执政之基、力量之源。
他们觉得北京现有的医疗条件能够接受感染病人的底线就是6000人。
我们的紧急调度能力强极了，我们上1000张床位的医院有30多个。
我自己所做的工作是有限的，我只希望在我卸任以后，全国人民能说一句，他是一个清官，不是贪官，我就很满意了。如果他们再慷慨一点说，朱镕基还是办了一点实事，哎呀，我就谢天谢地了。我现在先向诸位介绍一下，在这次会议上面新当选的本届政府的副总理是李南清副总理、钱其琛副总理、吴邦国副总理、温家宝副总理，这是新任的副总理啊，大家鼓掌欢迎好吗？
那如果下一个总理不是朱总理的话，你觉得他在哪个方面应该向你学习，在哪个方面不应该向你学习？谢谢。
至于我本人，除了我确实是在埋头苦干的工作以外，我没有什么优点，我不希望别人学习我，特别是某家香港报纸说我的本事就是拍桌子、捶板凳、瞪眼睛，那更不要学习我。
对朱镕基总理本人的工作有何评价？
朱镕基总理是我非常敬佩的一个领导人，他有许多优点值得我学习。至于我自己，
大家普遍认为我是一个温和的人，但同时我又是一个有信念、有主见、敢负责的人。
6时40分，中央文化革命小组第1副组长江青同志宣布接见外地来宾革命师生大会开始。
同志们、同学们，你们好！我代表中央文化革命小组全体同志为你们好！热烈地欢迎你们，向你们致敬！现在请林彪同志讲话。同学们、同为的战士们，我代表我们伟大的导师、伟大的领袖、伟大的统帅、伟大的多色毛主席，向各地来的同学们问好，向大家问好。 回春以后，一定会更好地按照毛主席的指示，按照党中央10条，冲破一切阻力，克服各种困难，把无产阶级文化大革命更加轰轰烈烈地开展起来。
In the 1980s, Deng Xiaoping's reforms shattered the ultimate explanations of life held by many conservative grassroots, while the Tiananmen incident also destroyed the idealistic ultimate answers imagined by the urban middle class who admired liberalism. At the same time, traditional explanations of life's ultimate questions from religion and lineage were disintegrated due to the highly communist communalization during the Mao era and even today. They are still disintegrating and fragmenting. During this period, Chinese people in Agni also faced the proliferation of media, bringing with it many myths about American life, the pursuit of wealth and social status, rural to urban migration, urban to metropolitan migration, and even overseas migration, becoming the standard for the elite class of that era. This factual materialism, worship of money, and flattery of authority inundated the entire mainland Chinese spiritual world with an unstoppable clamor. Traditional relationships in society were destroyed, and discussions of distant issues were terminated. Even during Xi Jinping's era, the short-sighted yearning for a better life could become the core goal of the country.
你只挣到钱，你挣到钱。我本来挣的一直只挣钱，我挣钱，我只挣钱不挣人。真的吗？哎，那你给我出去。我是要出去。老子哪个是老子啊？你看那天俺爸爸这个哪一天嘛？你敢闭嘴呀！你敢打爸爸有的，我的手你个老贼，找死你！哪个是老子说？你跟我说。
Since the 1990s, the Chinese sociological community has noticed the widespread spiritual suffering among the Chinese people. Experts and scholars have finally named this phenomenon spiritual desertification. To prevent its spread, the authorities opened the right to interpret the ultimate questions to religion, tradition, and lineage. The country thus shifted from socialism to Chinese nationalism, and traditional Chinese medicine, Qinggong, and various teaching methods flourished. However, when the Falun Gong gathering in Beijing in 2001 was violently banned and ended, Chinese nationalism began to evolve into national nationalism. Patriotic education in China has been promoted with unprecedented vigor, ultimately replacing religion, tradition, and lineage and giving the people a new ultimate answer: the great recognition of China, the Chinese nation, and even the Chinese civilization.
中国人民是崇尚正义、不畏强暴的人民。中华民族是具有强烈民族自豪感和自信心的民族。中国人民从来没有欺负、压迫、奴役过其他国家人民。过去没有，现在没有，将来也不会有。同时，中国人民也绝不允许任何外来势力欺负、压迫、奴役我们。谁妄想这样干，必将在14多亿中国人民用血肉铸成的钢铁长城面前碰得头破血流。
Unlike the party central committee, the State Council took a practical approach, tackling real problems.
我非常感谢和欢迎诸位光临我们今天的记者招待会，我们愿意回答诸位所提出的任何问题。
Premier Zhu, I'm with Time Magazine. My name is Jimmy. I was just last week I had a chance to observe village elections in Jilin and Liaoning province, which generally enabled villagers to elect or throw out their leaders. Would you personally endorse such a system which will allow all Chinese above 18 years old to choose not only their local leaders but also national leaders, including state president and premier? If so, how long do you think will that take? If not, why not? Thank you.
首先，我昨天看到《Time》杂志最近这一期登了我一个封面的照片，我看了一下以后呢，比前几天出版的《Newsweek》那个封面的也是我的照片，《Time》这个照片登的好像比较漂亮一点，我对你表示感谢。但是我一点没有怪 Newsweek 的意思，因为我本来长得就不好看。您提出的关于民主选举的问题，我当然是表示赞成的。我想已经有一个美国的基金组织的到中国来，对这种选举农村的民主进行过调查，而且发表了非常肯定的意见。而且现在这一种民主的制度不但是在农村，而且在企业也在试行。比如说民主的评议厂长，民主的审查财政的账目，民主的选举厂长，现在在很多企业也在试行。这一种三大民主，我认为也是非常好的一个方向。当然在政府机构进行民主的选举，包括选举总理和主席，这是一个政治体制改革的问题。我想这个要通过一定的法律程序来进行。这种民主选举的程序在中国和外国是不一样的，在东方和西方也是不一样的。我想这个问题还要进行进一步的研究。至于何时实现这种选举，我现在难以预言。谢谢。
In 1998, Premier Zhu Rongji's cabinet not only promoted a complete criminal law, established a tax-sharing system to strengthen central-local relations and national unity, but also fully supported southern and Beijing-based investigative journalism institutions. He even encouraged the opening of qualifications for independent candidates for National People's Congress deputies, among whom were laid-off workers, farmers, students, writers, professors, journalists, lawyers, and IT professionals. Mr. Yao Lifa from Hubei province became the first independent candidate. In 2003, Sima Nan was also elected as an independent candidate in Beijing's Dongcheng district. This even gave rise to the participation of spiritual party members of the Kuomintang of China Pan-Blue Alliance in mainland China's elections, marking the first time that spiritual party members of the Chinese Nationalist Party experienced documentation reforms and entered the Chinese National People's Congress. Certainly, their tragic stories afterward were deeply saddening, but during Zhu Rongji's era, Chinese people took various positive measures in both reality and spiritually, attempting to offer strong support to the Chinese people.
Miss Liu, hello.
哎，你好，干嘛呀？
So we're hoping we can come in and talk to you.
那进来吧。
Thank you. Excuse me, I think we have permission to go in and speak to this lady. Who are these people?
他们我都不认识，不认识他们是谁。
刘女士，您为什么要参选？
因为我认为参选这是我权利，这是我的权利。
没关系。上个月13号、14号来的时候，我是讲我们要进行决战。现在我们可以说，这一次的决战已经取得了决定性的胜利，但是我们丝毫不能放松警惕，我们一定要继续发扬不怕体弱、联手战斗的精神，要争取全面的胜利。同志们有没有这个决心？谢谢大家，我相信我们一定会继续保持旺盛的精力，坚持到最后的全面的胜利。
无奈只一息间灿烂，随云霞渐散，逝去的光彩不复还。迟迟年月，难耐这一生的变幻。如浮云聚散，缠结这沧桑的卷压。漫长路，骤觉光阴退减。歡欣總短暫未再返，哪個看透我夢想是平淡？曾遇上幾多風雨翻，編織我交錯命運。常遇你真心的臂彎，伴我走過患難。不過縱心灰淡，路上紛擾。波折再一彎，一天想到歸去，但已晚。逝去的光彩不復還，遲年月，難耐這一生的變幻。如浮雲聚散，纏結這滄桑的卷壓。漫長路，驟覺光陰退減，歡欣總短暫未再返，哪個看透我夢想？
但是你失去了一個中国的朋友。
曾遇上幾多風雨翻，編織我交錯夢幻。曾遇你真心的臂彎，伴我走過患難。不過縱心灰淡，路上紛擾波折再一彎，一起想到歸去，但已晚。
你们有一个好，全世界跑到什么地方，你们比其他的地方是吧？跑得还 但是呢，问来问去的问题啊 ，too simple， 啊 ，sometimes naive。
所以后来我念了2首，革命国家身体体互不对称。
Time flies very fast. We met for the first time in 1986.
You and I?
That's right. When I was mayor of Shanghai.
That's right. It was on a roof out of doors.
Out of door near the Huangpu River.
Exactly.
And I'm very happy to meet you again today.
And I thank you very much for granting us this interview.
您认为中国的21世纪会是什么样子？
我想21世纪的中国，吃的、玩的、穿的，交通都会改善很多，就这样子。
我想。我们的开放政策，我们国家商品走向社会，走向世界，人走向世界，跟上世界潮流的发展，一定会成为世界上第一流强大的国家。
我想应该和美国、日本差不多吧，应该是很有发展前途的。如果人活的应该是很累的，应该干的